The sun was just beginning to rise, casting its golden hue across the sprawling estate of the Morrison family. The estate, located on the outskirts of the city, was a marvel of modern luxury. With manicured lawns, a shimmering pool, and a grand mansion with towering columns, it was a testament to the family's immense wealth. Inside, young Ethan Morrison, a boy of 12 with bright eyes and a curious mind, was finishing his breakfast. His father, Robert Morrison, a stern yet loving man in his late 40s, sat across the table reading the morning paper. "Ethan," Robert said, folding the newspaper and setting it aside, "we're going on a trip this weekend." Ethan's face lit up. "A trip? Where to? The mountains? The beach?" "Neither," Robert replied, a small smile playing on his lips. "We're going to the countryside." "The countryside?" Ethan asked, puzzled. "What's there to see?" Robert leaned forward, his expression serious. "You've grown up surrounded by comfort, Ethan, but I want you to understand the value of what we have. I want you to see how people live without the luxuries we often take for granted." Ethan nodded, though he wasn't entirely sure what his father meant. He was eager for the adventure and looked forward to spending time with his dad. On a crisp Saturday morning, Robert and Ethan loaded their belongings into the family's SUV and set off. The cityscape gradually gave way to open fields, dense woods, and rolling hills. The air grew fresher, and the hum of city traffic was replaced by the chirping of birds and the rustling of leaves in the wind. After several hours, they arrived at a small, modest farm. The farmhouse was simple, with peeling white paint and a creaky porch. A family of four, the Browns, greeted them warmly. The father, James, was a wiry man with weathered hands, while his wife, Sarah, had a gentle smile and kind eyes. Their children, Anna and Tommy, were around Ethan's age, and their clothes, though worn, were clean and neat. "Welcome, Mr. Morrison," James said, shaking Robert's hand firmly. "We're glad to have you here." "Thank you, James," Robert replied. "This is my son, Ethan." Ethan offered a polite hello and a shy smile, unsure of what to expect. Over the next few days, Ethan was immersed in the daily life of the Browns. He woke up at dawn to help feed the chickens and milk the cows. He followed James to the fields, where they plowed the land and planted seeds. He learned how to fetch water from the well, chop firewood, and even repair a broken fence. Ethan marveled at how resourceful the family was. They grew their own vegetables, raised livestock for meat and eggs, and bartered with neighbors for goods they couldn't produce themselves. The children entertained themselves with simple games, laughter, and the occasional mischief. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the Browns invited the Morrisons to join them for dinner. The meal was humble: fresh bread, vegetable stew, and a berry pie made from fruit they had picked earlier that day. Yet it was one of the best meals Ethan had ever tasted. Around the table, the family shared stories, jokes, and heartfelt conversations. Ethan noticed how close-knit they were, how their laughter filled the room, and how their eyes sparkled with contentment. On the drive back home, Robert was eager to hear his son's thoughts. "So, Ethan," he began, "did you enjoy the trip?" Ethan turned to his father, his eyes wide with excitement. "It was amazing, Dad." Robert smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment. "And did you notice how poor people live?" "Yes, I did," Ethan said, nodding vigorously. Robert encouraged him to elaborate, expecting a recount of the family's hardships. Instead, what Ethan said left him speechless. "Well, we have only one dog, and they have four. We have a pool in our backyard, but they have a whole river where they can swim and play. We have fancy lanterns, but they have stars that light up the entire sky. We have a small patio, but they have the entire horizon to look at. We own a little plot of land, but they have fields that go on forever. We buy our food from stores, but they grow theirs fresh every day. And we have high fences around our house to keep people out, but they don't need fences because they have friends who look out for them." Robert stared at his son, unable to find the words. Ethan's innocent observations had turned his assumptions upside down. "Thank you, Dad," Ethan added softly, "for letting me see how poor we are." Robert sat in silence for a long while, his son's words echoing in his mind. He had intended to teach Ethan a lesson about gratitude, But it seemed that Ethan had taught him something far more profound. For the first time, Robert saw his own life through a different lens. Despite all his wealth and success, he realized there were things money could never buy: the boundless joy of simplicity, the deep connections forged through shared hardships, and the beauty of living in harmony with nature. When they arrived home, the estate felt emptier than usual. The grandeur that Robert had once taken pride in now seemed hollow. He resolved to make some changes, not just in how they lived, but in how they viewed the world. Over the coming weeks, Robert encouraged Ethan to stay in touch with the Browns. They visited the farm regularly, helping out with chores and sharing meals. Robert also began involving Ethan in charitable activities, teaching him the importance of giving back and building relationships beyond material wealth. Years later, when Ethan was grown and reflecting on his childhood, he often thought back to that trip to the countryside. It was a pivotal moment in his life, one that shaped his values and priorities. He understood that true wealth was not measured by the size of one's bank account, but by the richness of one's experiences, relationships, and appreciation for life's simple joys. For Robert, the trip had been a wake-up call. It reminded him of the importance of staying grounded, of cherishing what truly matters, and of teaching his son not just to succeed, but to live a meaningful life. And so, the Morrisons became known not just for their wealth, but for their generosity, humility, and the warmth they brought to others' lives, a legacy that would endure for generations to come.